Hi, bitch besties. It's your main bitch, Melly. Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to another episode of the Judgy Bitch Pod. Hi, bitch besties. Welcome to another episode of the Judgy Bitch Pod. Hello, hello. I'm so glad you're here. As I told you last week, I had surgery and got my fibroid and my uterus removed. So that's why this week is a little different episode. It's a bonus episode, and it's actually the episode that I recorded with Tammy. Tammy invited me to come on her podcast, The Path to Transformation. And if you didn't have a chance yet to listen to it, here's the episode that Tammy kindly shared with me to share with you guys. But please also check out Tammy's Instagram and TikTok and her podcast, and you can find it everywhere where you listen to podcasts. It's called The Path to Transformation. Enjoy the episode. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you bitches next week. Thank you. Bye.
All right, so today I have on with me my friend Melly of the Judgy Bitch podcast. How's it going, Melly?
Hi, Tammy. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on. I know we were talking about this like when we were at the pool the other day, and I was just like, wait, I need to have you on because I was just on Melly's. So make sure you tune in to her podcast. And where can we find your podcast?
So it's called the Judgy Bitch Pod. I'm also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and YouTube and everywhere where you can find your podcast.
Yay. What kind of like drew you to starting a podcast?
Ooh, that's a good question. So what happened was that I was laid off of my job in March and I had to find a new job, and which I did, but I didn't like it so much and I had to take a huge pay cut. At the same or around the same time, I started watching the Hulu documentary about Alex Cooper from the Call Her Daddy podcast, and she made millions off her podcast. And then my building where my apartment is in announced that they are building a podcast room. And I was like, pay cut, she makes million, they're building a podcast room. Maybe I should start my own podcast. I have opinions. I'm a judgy bitch. There you go, Judgy Bitch Pod.
I love that. No, it's so cool to like live in a place that has, amenities. I didn't realize that the like buildings were doing podcast studios. That's awesome.
And you want to hear the funny part?
Yeah.
The freaking podcast room is still not ready, and my podcast is on episode 10 or something.
Oh no. Why is it taking so long?
Yeah, good question. Next question.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Because I know at like the library, some of the libraries, they have podcast rooms now
Oh,
that you can rent
interesting.
out. Though there's like one library downtown I know that has it, but I know you're not there.
Oh, interesting. I'm just doing it for my apartment, and I thought, my pictures in the background with Peanut on it, and Peanut is my sidekick. He's my dog, but he's also my sidekick on the podcast. And I always say, him and I, we have the most opinionated opinions. So it just makes it even more relatable that I have my own apartment with Peanut, King Peanut, right here in the background.
The mascot, I love it. So I know that we met, I guess, almost a year ago now. I think I met you on the first walk was a Studio City walk. So that's pretty cool. I think it was almost like a year ago now. And you, before California, you were in Belmar, New Jersey, correct?
Yeah, first of all, I love that you remember when we met exactly. We should celebrate our friendship anniversary.
Yes, our friend anniversary.
Yes, I don't remember that, but I do remember we met through the walking group. And yes, I was living on the East Coast for the last 10 years. I've been a year now in LA. So the 10 years before that, I was living on the East Coast. 4 of those years, I was in Belmar, New Jersey, and then I actually moved up to Jersey City. So when I first moved here from LA, I actually moved from Jersey City, and I was working in Manhattan. So Jersey, Manhattan, New York, I feel connected to these areas.
That's so cool. I know, I mean, Belmar's the beach that like I used to go to. So it's so funny how I meet people and I realize like our paths like, could have potentially have crossed at some point because I was going to Belmar, definitely in like high school or whatever, and you were up bopping around there.
I know, isn't that funny that we did met? Do you believe in the butterfly effect?
Oh, for sure.
So maybe if I hadn't moved to LA, we would have met in Belmar. Although I wasn't living there anymore, I would still go down to Belmar a lot in the summertime to use the beach there. So maybe we would have met there if it was meant to be that we were meeting in this lifetime,
Yeah, that's so crazy because it's just like I visited, San Diego, and that's where like one of my roommates is from, and like how did we not run into each other? And I visited New Mexico, and that's where like one of the girls from the walking group lived, and like I visited. So it's just like so weird, and like you're like wait, we could have met, kind of.
I love that. It's funny though.
I know, it's so cool. But yeah, Belmar has like a good little place in my heart. It was definitely like an hour though, and like a half or an hour and 20 away from my house still. So it's so nice to be like 20 minutes from the beach now, but I'm just spoiled here. We all are.
Yeah, I'm still an hour away from the beach because I'm in Hollywood. I'm a little further away.
True, true. I mean, I guess technically I'm like when I'm in the west side, I'm 20 minutes away. We're not even. So you coming to America, can
Hmm.
you, and then moving to LA, what made you kind of choose to move to the West Coast? And like, what was that process like for you?
The West Coast move.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, I was 10 years on the East Coast and I did like Belmar a lot. I like Jersey City as a city a lot. I still believe Manhattan is the best city in the world. Don't come for me. I said what I said.
Mhm.
And however, I just couldn't fuck with the weather out there anymore. I'm sorry, I cursed. Am I allowed to curse here?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
I couldn't fuck with the weather out there anymore. I hated the humidity. My hair is not made for that type of weather. My hair is naturally fucked up, curly-ish, more frizzy than curls. So the humidity really didn't do me any favors out there. And then, especially since I had Peanut, my dog, I always wanted to take him outside, to take him to the doggy parks, take him on hikes and all these outside activities. And I felt on the East Coast, there was just never the right weather to do anything. Either it's fucking hot and humid, or it's raining, or in the wintertime, it's so freezing cold that you don't want to be outside. It just was never the right type of weather. And I'm a huge Bravo fan, and I was watching Vanderpump Rules since day one, pretty much, actually, since day two, because, I've only been in the States for 11 years and I think they're like 12 years old, but doesn't matter. So that show plays in West Hollywood. So I was always a fan of like, oh, look in LA and the weather is so nice and blah, 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 blah. So eventually I was so fed up on the East Coast. I said, I'm going to pack my shit and I'm just going to move out West. I'm done here.
Yeah, I second everything that you said. And I'm so proud of you for making the move
Thank
because
you.
it's not hard. It's not easy to like make that decision and like finally like get rid of the place, find a new place and all that. But it
Yeah.
is like people, shit on like East Coast, West Coast, whatever. And a lot of the people from the East Coast are like, oh, fuck LA, LA sucks, California, blah, blah, blah. But it really is, I think, the weather when it comes down to it. Like some people can deal with it, but some of us just are not made for it anymore and we cannot do it. Some people can pull through. I was not one of them. I was like seasonally depressed, like in my room, like too much, I feel. It's
For
just so
sure.
fucking cold. And like you're saying, you like to be active and like be outside and like go on hikes and stuff. And you often have to like drive over an hour for that in when you're in Jersey or PA. Like it's not
Yeah.
close and
Yeah.
it
And
sucks.
at the end in Jersey City, because I was working in Manhattan, I didn't even have a car,
Oh,
because I was not
right.
commuting by car. So why have those additional expenses? So traveling an hour to go hiking somewhere was even more challenging. Do you take an Uber? I mean, they would probably take you out there, but do you find an Uber to take you back? Is there an Uber in the wilderness to call to get back home? So that was a struggle. And then also commuting with the path from Jersey City into Manhattan and then in Manhattan with the subway when it's 100 fucking degrees and 99% humidity, it's just not fun. And especially when you work in a work environment where you have to wear the blouses and shit, you can sweat through them. And I'm a heavy sweater. I'm actually now taking medication to sweat less, but it just was a nightmare on a daily basis. And my anxiety was through the roof just because of the weather.
Yeah, it's so limiting. And people are like, oh, there's Central Park, but you can only do so much in, Manhattan and Central Park. Like it's like
Yes.
very small. I think you made the right decision. Did you have any like fears or anything about moving and making friends? I know we're a little bit age-wise, we're a little bit few years apart, but what is there any difference? Because I know for me being like, early 30s, I had feelings and thoughts.
I know I'm a little bit younger than you. I'm 25. Just kidding.
Love it.
Just kidding. I'm in my early 40s. Don't ever repeat that. I never said that. I will deny I said that. But I didn't so much have the fears of moving. Everybody in Jersey City, my friends would tell me, and even my German friends, I'm from Germany originally, they would tell me I'm so brave and just to pack up and to move across country, and they wouldn't dare that, and they would be too shy and too afraid. And I'm like, what are you afraid for? For me, because I had already experienced that move multiple times from Germany to the United States and start completely fresh and over with no friends and nobody, for me, it wasn't a big deal. I didn't think so much about it. I was more selfishly thinking about, I don't like it here anymore. Let's go somewhere else where I might like it. And then I also must say, because I have Peanut, my dog now, I'm so hiding behind his little ass so much. Because honestly, when I go anywhere, I take him with me as much as I can. And he takes all the eyes on him and the attention on him. And I can just trot behind him and, nobody will even notice that I'm there, even, So Peanut is my comfort blanket. He is, my emotional support and plus my best friend and everything. So I don't even feel like I'm alone. So when I moved across country, I didn't move alone because I had Peanut with me. And I knew that I'm a little bit of a social butterfly, I would say. I easily make connections, not deep friends necessarily, that
Mhm.
takes work, but I easily start conversations with strangers. And yeah, so I wasn't nervous about that part.
I think that's exactly how you have to be. You have to be like open and just making these like random conversations with people in line or somebody that you see on the sidewalk and like complimenting their shoes or whatever. Like that
Yeah,
is how, but like you're saying, it might not be, it can be an acquaintance at first, but like to really have friendships, you have to foster and like and feed this friendship and it has to be reciprocal and everything.
for sure.
Because I
Yeah.
think there's definitely different levels and some people, I think friendship's a huge, topic. So let's go more into that. Do you
Mhm.
feel like at your in your age versus like my age, do you think there's a difference in making friends? Because I think I've heard it seems across the board though, people are complaining, it's so hard to make friends. It's so hard to meet friends in your, X age. Well, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I also had troubles making friends in my 30s. And I don't want to make it political, but with the political environment we are in, it makes it even more difficult just because we're so divided right now, right? So if the country is divided politically, it also makes you divided from friends and people you meet just because you're on two opposite poles, so to speak, right? But in general, especially for me as a German, I can compare a little bit the German mentality and the American mentality, right? I find that it's easy to start a conversation with strangers. Like you say, you're in line at the coffee shop, and, especially with Peanut, I so easily start talking with strangers. But it's more difficult to create real friendships out of that. And it was maybe a little bit easier for me in my 30s or 20s because I was more naive and not quite as mature and didn't really see who was a good friend and who was a toxic friend. It took me a long, long time to learn that lesson. And I find Americans are way further in that development than I was as a German, just because mental health and all these topics are more openly talked about than from the time when I was in Germany and younger. Just wasn't ever a conversation or ever a part of a movie or a TV series, or maybe I was just oblivious to it. Who knows? But I had to learn that in my 30s. And I learned most of those lessons the hard way. I had a lot of friends that turned later out to be toxic, and I had to then find the guts in me to let that friend go because I'm a people pleaser very much, and I get attached to friends, specifically with my family, not here on this continent. My family's all in Germany. So I make friendships so important in my life that they are almost my family here locally, right? And then if it then turns out that one of those bitches is actually toxic, then I have a hard time of letting go because it's family, right? So you forgive more when it's family, or you give chance over chance, and you turn a closed eye, and And so that's definitely a lesson I had to learn. And I feel like I've gotten much better. But it takes some time of really spending time, some deep conversations, also going through some shit and see who's really there for you and who will reach out to you when you don't reach out. And, just will teach you who's really in your corner and who isn't so much. And yeah, so long story short, it isn't easy to make true friends at any age group. It just depends on how mature you are and how good of a people reader you are and how you make those connections. But it also requires work. Don't expect sitting home and make besties out there. You have to put yourself out there, and you have to invest time, and you also have to be the one reaching out, thinking of you. You're starting your new job today or whatever, or hey, I saw this, I was thinking of you, do you want to go there with me? You have to really invest in it. You cannot
Mhm.
expect it to come to you.
I like how you put that. Yeah, you have to make the effort, and the reciprocal relationship for sure is
Yeah.
so important. And I think to to piggyback off of what you said though, I think it can be difficult to make friends at any age, but like you're saying, as we age, it gets easier to like sift through the bullshit, or you create some of these maybe like boundaries or non-negotiables. So what would you say like some now in your 40s, like what are some friendship non-negotiables maybe that you have now, things that you look for in a friend?
So that might differ from people to people, right? But I think
Yeah.
the main thing for me is I want the friendship to be a two-way street, right? I don't want it to be lopsided. I don't want to be just the only one who always makes an effort, but also the other way around. I don't want to be the one that always says no to whatever the other person is offering. That also doesn't make me feel good, right? So it has to be a two-way street. And generally speaking, it should be somebody uplifting, somebody you can really open up to and be vulnerable with, but also have some fun with. And, if you're into drinking, maybe get a drink and maybe have a drunk night and laugh your ass off. And it's supposed to make you feel good, but in our age, you need also like a life partner, so to speak, somebody who just does life with you and who's there for you even when you go through a tough time. And that can sometimes be a one-way street because obviously we don't both go through shit at the same time. So that's a give and take kind of thing. And that is completely okay, even if the other person does not need you in that way. They shouldn't feel like you're using them or something. You know what I'm saying? So that what makes a friendship for me at my age right now.
Yeah, I think like you're saying, yeah, definitely will depend person to person. Um, but I've heard like a lot of people be like, I don't know how to make new friends and da da da. But I think from my perspective or my opinion, it really helps when you're your most authentic and true self. And that
Yeah.
takes time because I feel like obviously I'm growing to do myself, but I feel like I moving here, like I'm my most like authentic self that I've been to date. And I can own up to like the things that I like. And like I told you on Saturday or Sunday, I was like, yeah, I'm not really the drinking club bar friend, but like ask me to go for a hike, ask me to go to a concert. I will be there for you. But
Yeah.
but if you're trying to go out at night and listen to some like I don't know, drinking and bar, like I'm probably not the first girl you should hit up. Like, and
And
like
that
I've owned that now.
And
So it's
that's
like,
totally okay. I feel like we all need to know what we're looking for and what type of friendship we're looking for. Obviously, me as a single doggy mom would probably not be the best partner for somebody who has three little children, right? Like we probably don't have so much in common. It might be even hard to find time, but you got to put your money where your mouth is, right? So if you meet somebody and you have that initial connection with, and even in the line at the coffee shop, somebody commenting on your shoes, or in my case, my dog or something, and you feel you have this connection, you start chit-chatting, don't shy away. Just ask. What I always like to do is say, do you mind if we exchange Instagrams? Maybe we can stay in touch. And usually people are completely fine with that. And then just by watching their story for a little bit, and maybe you find a way in through seeing like, oh, that person went to see a movie and just comment on it. Oh, I wanted to see that too. How was it? And that's how you start a conversation. And then once you say we should meet for a coffee, make that shit happen. I feel like that was my biggest frustration with Americans when I first moved here. They all say we should meet for coffee, and that should never happen. So that's why I'm saying put your money where your mouth is, make it happen, and sometimes you have to be the initiator, but you also the one who's interested to make that friendship work at the beginning stage. Later on, it should be a give or take, but at the beginning stage, I feel like, you got to work for it.
hmm The follow through, yeah, exactly. Like if you're gonna don't say stuff if you don't mean it too. Like, because
Yes.
I think there are some of those connections where you meet people and they're just like, oh my God, yeah, like we should, but like deep down they don't actually want to hang out or meet up. It's like, don't fucking say that. Like, be honest with what you're saying and your intentions. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
So, what originally then brought you to America?
All right. I need a drink for that. Cheers.
Okay, cheers, yes.
So that's a little bit of a longer story. So sit back and relax. Um, when I was 19 and finishing up my high school, I was very much naive and didn't really know what to do. And my mom was very much on my case, apply for universities, or in Germany, it's very common to do an apprenticeship, which is pretty much a 2.5 or 3 year program to learn a specific job, combined with like business school, for example, and you also working in a company where you really learn from the get-go, that job. So she was on my case, apply for apprenticeships or university, make up your mind, do something. You're almost done with high school. You can't sit home. You have to have the next step. And I just didn't fucking know which direction to go. But I had a school friend who did like a high school year here in America, and she was still volunteering for that organization she did it with. So she took me with her one day, and that was the perfect excuse for me. So from that day forward, I told my mom, I'm going to be an au pair and I'm going to go to America. And she's like, sure, whatever, And I'm like, no, that's going to be good for me. I'm going to learn the culture and the language and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, sure. And I just kept saying it just to get her off my case until the day that I found myself at the airport. And at that moment, I must also say, I had never flown before. That was my first time on an airplane across the ocean by myself without my family. So that was a hard awakening for me. So yeah, that was that. So I became an au pair in Jersey, and that was for a year. And to everybody who doesn't know what an au pair is, it's like a babysitter, like a nanny. You live with the family, they house you and feed you. In return, you're watching their children and help with everything work related to the kids, and you only get a little pocket money. So in my case, more than 20 years ago, I made $40 a week. That was my salary for being a nanny. So I did this for a year. And during that time, I met a guy at 19 or 20 years old. We were loosely dating, but I was just so fascinated by him because he was obviously American and he was playing in a band. He was the same age as me. And I don't know, I was just mesmerized by this guy. And then once my au pair year was up and I went back to Germany and I started an apprenticeship and started working, him and we stayed loosely in touch until the smartphones came out many, many years later. So once the smartphones came out, all of a sudden, him and we were back in touch on a daily basis. And back then, I didn't use my Facebook as much because I was working in an office environment, and at work, we weren't allowed to use Facebook. And at home, I was like, no, I stare at this freaking computer all day long. I don't want to turn the computer on. But then once the smartphones came out, I saw on his Facebook that he kept telling people, Voxer me, Voxer me. And I was like, what the fuck is Voxer? What is he talking about? So it turned out it was an app back in the day, like a walkie-talkie kind of app where you talk to each other and send like voice messages back and forth. So I downloaded this app and I signed in with my Facebook account. And I wasn't aware by doing that he would get a notification that I am now a Voxer user. So next thing I know, he reached out to me and I almost fell off my couch hearing his voice after so many years. So we started talking to each other through Voxer on a daily basis, multiple times. And then I was going to turn 30 and I had my first midlife crisis. I was like, oh my God, I hate my birthday. I don't want to do this. So he said, why don't you come here and celebrate your birthday here? Bring your bestie. And, we're so close to New York. Come here, celebrate your birthday. My birthday is the day before New Year's Eve. So he was like, you can celebrate New Year's Eve in Manhattan and stuff. So I did. I took my bestie. We went to visit him. He picked us up at the airport, and we immediately fell back in love, even more so than from when I was an au pair. And we immediately started talking about wanting to be together and want to get married. And I should move to him and we should apply for visa and all that. And so we did. We dated long distance for 2 years. And then I finally received the 90-day fiance visa, like the TV show. And we had to get married within 90 days. And we did. And yeah, shit turned south very quickly. Honestly, I even ignored so many red flags before we even got married. But a long story short, he was very abusive. He was struggling with addiction and health things and mental health things. And we were happily married, I always say, for 15 minutes until I caught him smoking weed on our reception, wedding reception, which I didn't even know he was a weed smoker before because he was hiding it from me.
Oh,
So things went really, really bad and really abusive. And so after 2 years of marriage, I filed for divorce and I filed for removal of condition, it's called, so that the marriage was removed from my green card, which was luckily approved. And yeah, so now I'm here on my own. And I actually made my citizenship this year in April. So now I'm a dual citizen. I'm an
yes.
American and a German, and he can kiss my fucking ass and go to hell. So there's
Oh,
that. Of
yes. Thank you for sharing so openly and honestly about that. Because
course.
I know a lot of women like that I've met have actually, gone through a divorce in their 30s. And I think it's, I mean, obviously, I'm not talking from experience, but I just really admire you choosing yourself and choosing what's right because I think so many, boomer women or whatever are stuck in these things because they haven't, maybe had the job or can't support themselves. So they're stuck with these fucking dick ass partners
Yeah.
and like miserable and they didn't get
Yeah.
to live their dream. What
Yeah.
were some of maybe these red flags that you ignored that now you're like, oh, I see it?
I mean, the biggest red flag probably is that he brought out a side in me that I didn't even know I had. And thinking back, and sometimes I get those flashback memories. I'm like, oh no, I can't believe I did this, or I said this, or I acted this way. Like, he was a type of guy who had, I know we all say we have that, but he actually had OCD. He had really the compulsive thoughts in his head running circles, and he would emotionally, with his words, corner me a lot and really put me under pressure with his words. And that happened even when we were dating long distance. Like, I remember, just to get his attention and to make him stop bullying me, so to speak, that I pretended I would take sleeping pills and shit. What in the world was I thinking? I've never in my life had been at such a low point to even consider any of these type of measures. So that already happened when we were dating long distance, and it only got much, much worse when we were married and living together. And he really brought out that side in me that I did not even know I had. And I'm so regretful right now. And as I said, when I get those flashback memories, I'm really ashamed of myself. Although I must say, I've been in therapy for so many years, still trying to work through the abuse that I had to experience. And the therapist told me to make me feel a little bit better that I was pretty much in fighting for my life and like in fight or flight mode. And in those kind of situations, there are no rules. And I did what I had to do for myself. And I hear what they're saying, but it's hard to sink that in. It's hard to agree with that when you're so ashamed of yourself, of the shit you've done.
If you don't mind me asking, was it like there's obviously different types of abuse? Did you get like
Mhm.
all of the above from this man or maybe like just one?
So it was mainly the emotional abuse with
Okay.
his words. The cornering was like the main part of it. But because he was also struggling with addiction, he did put hands around my neck, for example. And even on my wedding day, I don't know if we gotten in a fight the day before or something. He must have grabbed my arm so strongly that on my wedding day, I have bruises on my arm.
I'm
Yeah.
so
So
sorry.
luckily, I wasn't beaten up or anything like that, but he did strangle me a couple times. And by strangling, I don't mean he was trying to kill me. It was more a reaction because he was high or withdrawing or whatever, where I did have the red finger marks around my neck, but I didn't feel like he's trying to kill me, if that makes any sense. You
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, because I think a lot of women have thought like, oh, well, he doesn't physically hit me, but like, oh no, like he's emotionally abusing you, and some people don't even realize like them controlling money too can be a form of the like manipulation and abuse. Like I think that's what I saw from like family members growing up. That was, oh, you can't buy this and da da da, like you controlling, and it's like, but wait, I'm supposed to be your wife. You're supposed to
Yeah.
support me. What do you mean I can't do this? And that it's like being held captive.
Yeah, 100%. I went through that too, especially the first few months of our marriage. I was waiting for my work permit. It just takes some
Mm,
time to get all the papers. So I was definitely depending on him financially. And he would snap, he would corner me with his words, freak me completely out with the shit he was saying. And then he would leave me in the house for like a week, would block me on all social media and phone and everything. And I would be by myself in his house, don't have any money really because I wasn't working. So he definitely did that as well. But just the starvation of him as a person, because mind you, I just moved across the country for this man. I dropped my entire life. I had a successful job in Germany and my whole family is in
hmm.
Germany. So I was by myself. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any friends. So I was literally stuck in the house with no job, no money, no friends, nobody by myself. And then we got married in October. So this was the winter time on the East Coast. I remember there was this one snowstorm where it knocked off the electricity in the house. So it was getting cold and I didn't know what to do. I was by myself, like this kind of abuse as well. But also he was threatening me a lot with my green card depending on him. And he would threaten me that he's going to call the cops on me and he's going to get my ass deported. And I should just go to Canada and flee because they're going to arrest me. Like the shit he said. And when you're in that moment, you don't really realize you're not yourself anymore. You don't think straight anymore. You're in such a panic mode the entire time that you can't think straight anymore. So when he says those things, you believe that and you fear for your life, not in the sense of he's going to kill me, but what if they lock me up and put me in prison? That's my life too. So that was the sort of abuse I went through.
I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, but I'm so glad that you are safe now and you live to tell the story to share with others, and I admire your vulnerability.
Thank
What
you.
are some like tips that you would or words of advice you'd share with a woman maybe that's in a similar situation now as you were?
Yeah. So it took me a long, long time to open up even to my family about what I was going through because I felt ashamed and humiliated. So one tip I would definitely give is pick somebody in your circle. It could be your best friend. It could also be somebody you're not even that close with if you're more comfortable to talking to somebody who's not that close to you, or a family member, but pick somebody you open up to. Don't go through this shit on your own. Because as I mentioned, you are not yourself. You're not seeing the clear picture. You are in like this different state of mind, so you need somebody to think for you almost and to give you advice how to get out of the situation, or even, hold the mirror in front of your face and show you what shit you're even going through if you're in denial and you're not even realizing what's happening. Um, so find somebody you trust that you can talk to, and depending on what stage you are, maybe that somebody can pull you out of that.
Like I know there's so many people that struggle with opening up to somebody, but I imagine
Mhm.
like what I feel like I would say to somebody is like it's nothing to be ashamed of. Like it can literally
Yeah.
happen to anybody. And it does happen to like anybody.
Yeah. I agree. And then after the fact, I seeked, there's the word again, seeked,
So I don't we know what you mean.
whatever the word is, help. And I went to therapy, and I would also highly recommend to anybody, not even just because you went through abuse, to anybody out there, I would highly recommend therapy. It helps so much.
just finding the voice for your emotions almost, and then get learning tools and or sometimes just a validation that it's valid you feel this way. So I found therapy super, super helpful. So that's also an advice I would give to somebody, especially, who's was going through abuse, but actually anybody.
Yeah, and with therapy, definitely my advice with that is just to sometimes you have to go through a few of them before you find a good fit, like for sure. That matters because why would I want to talk to like an 80-year-old man or a 60-year-old man? Like they
Yeah.
don't resonate. So my favorite one was like definitely like in her 30s and younger. And the one before that, she was like a mom and like older, but like we had to break up. So anyway, find who is your right fit for sure.
And honestly, with therapists, my experience is it's not like once you find somebody who's good for you, you're gonna stick with them for the rest of your life. I think you're going through stages, and so the same applies to therapists. Like in my situation, when I first got out of the marriage, I needed a therapist to help me overcome the victim mentality, right? And to find my confidence and my self esteem and my voice again, and who taught me in hindsight to recognize there were so many red flags that I didn't see. So what can I do for moving forward for the future to see those kind of red flags? So there was a specific therapist that I needed in that moment. But once I had recovered a little bit more, a couple of years down the road, I needed a complete different therapist who helped me with struggles, let's say with my family life, for example, or with my work life, or, so I had different therapists over the years, but I feel like each therapist played a role for what my needs were in those moments.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because yeah, I had to like break up with mine after I lost my mom, and then I wanted to talk more about like relationships and how to like have a healthy relationship, where she had helped me a lot with anxiety and stuff. So I was like, you're not really helping me anymore. Like I need help with like, OCD and like relationships, anxiety, attachments and dating. So yeah, I like that point that you made.
Yeah.
So, since now that you are divorced officially and have been out of that
Happy.
relationship, how has it impacted your dating life and like the partners you choose and like approaching dating and stuff?
That's a loaded question because the dating question is another question I could go on a rant about. But, as I mentioned, I had to learn a little bit how to date again and to trust my own judgment with people. And I also had to learn how to recognize red flags, especially in the dating world. And I also had to pretty much learn what I want out of a partnership. Like we talked about earlier with the friendships, the same applies for a partnership too, right? I had a wonderful boyfriend after I got divorced, and I felt like this was the first relationship that was a really good one. So I feel like therapy helped. I picked a good guy until it wasn't good anymore. Um, yeah, so I think it's possible. Then I was, after that friendship fell, if not friendship, partnership fell apart. I was a lot on the dating apps for a long, long time. And then years later, I realized I don't think the dating app process is so much for me. So now I've been single ever since. Happy single though. And I feel like maybe because I was married before, I don't feel the pressure that a lot of, especially American girls feel, that they need to be married by a certain age or whatever. I don't feel that anymore. I'm very happily single. With that being said, I do sometimes have the moments where I see other happy couples and I envy that. And I'm like, I wish I had my best friend living with me that I could just go on a hike with, or, I don't have to do all these things by myself. Um, so I'm starting to be more open to the dating world again, but I do know I don't want the dating apps again. So I recently signed up for an Instagram post that just came across my way. And everybody always says you should go where you meet guys. Go to the golf course. All the guys on the golf course. I'm like, what the fuck would I do with a golfer? I
Right.
don't play golf. I don't want him to spend his entire weekend on the golf course and don't have time for me to go on hikes. So I saw this Instagram post and it was pretty much a speed dating on a hike situation. I was like, that's perfect. I like hiking. I don't mind speed dating so much. I don't know if I'm going to get a boyfriend out of this, but at the minimum, I'm going to get a good story for my podcast out of it. So I signed up for it and it's coming up in a couple of weeks and I'm excited about it.
I'm so glad that you're trying out that. And I think it is definitely like the apps are definitely for some people, but they aren't for a lot of us. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I think it's hard to show yourself through an app and like authentically like communicate and everything. But I'm glad, like I admire that you are, happily single because it is possible. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's a spot where like I'm at right now where like I'm very, very happy and like I admire, like look up to you and like some of the other girls and I'm
Thank
like,
you.
oh yeah, like it's possible, like we can be there and it's like I don't have to rush, but there is pressure like you're saying for like American
Yeah.
girls for sure.
See, and I don't have that pressure anymore. I was many, many years, especially when I was moving across country, right? I was so glad I didn't have a boyfriend holding me back in my endeavors, right? I was so glad being on my own and rather spending quality time with good friends and not having to check with anybody if I can do this now or if we have other plans. I was really, really happy single and not interested in dating whatsoever. So there doesn't really have to be pressure in your life. I feel like it's just an outside created issue. But now I'm at a point where I say, I sometimes envy the happy couples. And so why not give that a try? And if I find out it's not for me, then guess what? I'm going to be happy single again.
Yeah, I think I mean I've even met friends though from like some of these dating things that so it's
Yeah,
been good. I can't wait to hear like about it. I know
thank
you
you.
have to head out soon, but is there any last thing that you wanted to add for the listeners? And then of course drop your handles.
Thank you. Well, I'm so glad you had me on because honestly, one of my listeners on my podcast was giving me feedback and asked to do an episode where I explain how I ended up here in America and what my life story is. So I'm so glad we got to do this on your podcast. I'm just going to send them your way. But
Yay.
if anybody wants to listen to my podcast, it's called the Judgy Bitch Pod. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You also find me on Instagram and on TikTok under what am I talking about? Under the Judgy Bitch Pod. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Melly. This was so good. And
Thanks
I
so
know
much
it's
for
going to be
having me.
helpful and I appreciate your vulnerability.
Thank you so much.
That was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. And if you are as excited and opinionated as Peanut and me, please give us a follow on Instagram at the Judgy Bitch Pod. And don't forget, please also tell everybody you know about this new podcast so they come and follow us as well. We would much appreciate it. Would you like to be part of it? Sure, go ahead. Send us a DM with your feedback, your hot takes, and your unapologetic opinions. We might read them next time. And last but not least, don't forget, please follow, review, and rate wherever you listen to this podcast. See you next week. Cheers, bitches.